You're all very welcome to the Red Door Gallery here in Newcastle West in Limerick, where we're going to discuss an all-important vote that is taking place this Friday about the directly elected Mayor of Limerick City and County. And I'm joined by John Moran of Liverpool Limerick and also Emmett O'Brien, who's an independent Limerick County Councillor, to discuss the debate. So what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to just get straight into it. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes each to talk about it. John, we're going to kick off with you. Tell me what you're voting, why, and why people should vote the way you were voting.
Okay. Well, I guess to me this is really all about the people and the choices for the people. Up to now we've had a situation where the CEO has effectively been appointed through a normal process, a sort of public service process, and the CEO of Limerick City and County Council has a huge amount of power. And at the moment, the accountability of that is in a way indirectly to the people through the councillors like Cllr O'Brien. And for me, what happens is that if we move to this new, situation, having come back to live in Limerick, it's all about how do we create a vision, how do we create a future for our own sort of county, and how do each one of us actually participate in that. I'd prefer, which is really why I'm supporting the proposal, to be able to have a fully open process of deciding what the county should do, deciding what the city should do, how they work together. And that's what actually happens in democracy. And I know there's an awful lot of people out there who think this is really confusing, this is really complicated, but actually it's a very simple proposition, which is that the new mayor will have a lot of power, a lot of influence in deciding the future that we live to. And by having an election for that mayor, each one of the candidates will put forward their vision. Each one of the candidates will say, I'm for this, I'm for that. And the people of the county will be able to decide which vision they like, which future they want for themselves, for their kids and others. And I think part of the message that we've been told, I mean, if you look at what's going on in the world at the moment, we've got some very big decisions about climate change, we've got some very big decisions about how do we deal with rural isolation, how do we deal with the renewal of the city. And I think it's really important that we all are part of the debate about how we actually decide which way we want to go. And at the moment, probably less obvious to people, the CEO has a huge amount of power in deciding what the future vision is. We don't pick the CEO. We don't even have a debate with the CEO about how we'd like it to go. And our interests are only represented by Cllr O'Brien and others who at the moment are working, although they work hard, and I'm sure he'll tell us that they, talk about the number of hours that our councillors have to work. It's still a part-time role. It's 40 people trying to actually influence the decisions of a small group of people that are working full-time. And I think this puts back a better balance in terms of our democracy, in terms of our ability to say where we want the future to go. And that's really, I suppose, the nub of it for me.
Okay, John, thank you so much. Emmett, over to you now. You're voting no, and why?
Well, I take the very simple proposition, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This is a system that we inherited after partition, and perhaps even before it, going back to the times of the grand juries, and after obviously the imposition of the local government, the new local government structures after partition almost 100 years ago, which both grandfathers fought during the War of Independence, for a system that we inherited, be it good or bad, from the British. But the thing that we really inherited from the British was almost an incorruptible civil service, which knew the very strict balance of powers and limits of powers between the reserved function, that for the councillors, and the executive function, that for the CEO or the county manager, city managers that they used to be. So what we have here is a picture painted by really Fine Gael, supported, needless to say, by Fianna Fáil for more democracy. Well, that's not quite accurate, because you have democracy, and very good functioning democracy as it is. On Friday next, we have a variety of votes, not just in terms of the referenda, and obviously with respect to the mayor's position, directly elected mayor, but in each of the districts in Limerick City, the 3 districts in Limerick City, and the 3 sub-districts within the county, the people of Limerick will be able to decide who their local representatives are. So to suggest that we need more democracy, I'm all in favour of more democracy, but it's another layer of potential political, authoritarian could be, bureaucracy that we don't really need. And I'm cautious about it because we know very little about what we're asking to vote for. This is a little bit like Brexit. An idea thrown out there by the government sounds good, no major research done into it, no bill proposed that we can read through the heads of the bill to get a kind of a flavour of what we have, other than a quite good briefing document from the Department of Housing, Planning and Local Government. What I'm worried about is that you'll have a parallel type of democracy or public representation. You'll have the 40 councillors who still will retain their reserve function as councillors directly elected by the people. I might have been a little bit smart on Twitter today. I said I'm out canvassing for re-election as a directly elected councillor, but that's exactly what we have. I have an electorate of 22,000 people, and the same in the other districts in Limerick City. But then imagine a scenario where we get a male or female directly elected mayor. You have a competing public servant or politician competing basically with the CEO, because we're not too sure what those defined categories between the CEO and the directly elected mayor is, and the councillors as well. Now, we can go through during the course of this debate, no doubt we'll be able to go through in more detail what potential powers and functions and duties a directly elected mayor has. But what I will say before I get to that is that currently the mayor that we have is Councillor James Collins. And I know this is not about picking out which mayor is good, which mayor is bad, but I think the present mayor and the present system that we have has served us very well. We have an extraordinarily able, professional, dedicated county manager in Con Murray who's brought huge economic investment, a huge change in focus to Limerick, has combined the city and the county into a very strong economic entity. We as councillors, albeit might be described as part-time, work really hard, basically as full-time councillors. I have a professional practice, private practice as well. I do other things on the side. But we are agents of change as well. So to say that we need a dedicated person that's going to be there for 5 years, perhaps that might be something in terms of continuity. And the one downside I do find about the current situation is that you have a new mayor every year. But I'm just cautious about changing something for the sake of changing it when we don't really know what we're doing.
I guess there's an awful lot that Councillor said there, right? But I think one of the most important things he said is that it's all about change for the sake of change. And I don't see that. I mean, I'm as proud a Limerick person as anyone else in this room, as anyone watching today. But I'm incredibly worried that although Limerick has done a lot in terms of improving itself in the last couple of years, it has plateaued. I mean, we can now see that Limerick has a lower crane count than Cork. It has a much lower crane count than Dublin. It has actually got one of the lowest constructions of housing at the moment in terms of the cities. And I think the current system has done okay to bring us to a certain point to deal with the merger. But if we really want to move forward, we've got to move forward with a much different form of government, like the types of government that have actually managed to transform cities all across Europe. I mean, Frank has written a lot about the powers of the mayor that has transformed Bordeaux. These are the type of things that I think most people in Limerick want. And I think they want to move forward. And what has been said there is that this could create sort of this competitive tension between the council, the mayor and the CEO. I think actually what the councillors are very worried about is the competitive tension between the mayor and the councillors. I think both the CEO, I remember working in the Department of Finance, right? The competitive tension in the Department of Finance was I was an unelected civil servant there for the longer term in the sense of through the elections. But there was a democratically elected Minister for Finance to make sure that we delivered on something that, as far as he was concerned, the people wanted to deliver. Not just our ideas, but ideas that had a political accountability. What you're moving forward to now is a situation where there will be one person who can genuinely say that they represent the majority will of the entire of Limerick. Not a councillor who represents 1,000 votes or 2,000 votes in a smaller part of the county or smaller part of the city, who themselves have to try and find a way with sort of a voting block arrangement to coalesce around a single sort of vision. Instead, what we'll have is we'll have a debate where a person will say, I want to do this with the city. Another person might say, I want to do this with the county. The voting arrangements at the moment in what we call Limerick are roughly speaking half of the votes in the city, half in the half in the city, half in the county. What that will mean is the choice we will have to work for everybody. It won't just work for one particular party, it won't work for another party. It won't be sort of a decision taken behind closed doors in terms of what it is. It'll be an open debate about what it is. And it was interesting that the councillor picked James Collins. James has done a very good job as a mayor in the last year. But if you look what has been said in the last couple of weeks, James Collins himself has come out very clearly in favour of this, because he knows that if you have a one-year term, you don't have a full democratic mandate, your ability to actually really affect the type of change that he wants to affect is very limited. And I think fundamentally no one better than him can speak to this. He's been on the inside, he's seen the limitations of the current system, and he, like me, I suspect if he was here today, is saying Limerick has so much more potential, it has so much more potential to leap forward, and this is the way for it to actually do that and take its position as a sort of a progressive, forward-looking city.
Emmett?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, of the former mayors, Councillor Keary had no opinion whatsoever on it, and then Councillor Kevin Sheehan came out flatly against it. I don't know what the position is with respect to Councillor Hanlon or the remaining mayor that was just mayor in the last 5 years as well. But what I will say, it's all very well to say that there's going to be immense power with this position of the newly directly elected mayor. And I'll deal with that in a moment. Of the last 6 weeks I've been canvassing for the local election, I've canvassed on close on 5,000 doors. One person has raised the issue, two people, another person as of today, 2 people have raised the issue to me about the directly elected mayor. One person, very well-known businessman in Limerick City, thinks it's just a bad idea. And the second person today said, what is all this about? So at least we're having the debate tonight. It's good to be here. John is a man of the highest calibre, and it's nice to be here to discuss this. But nobody actually, frankly, knows a single thing about it, including the councillors, including the potential candidates who are likely to run for the position of directly elected mayor. And I can say at the outset, as a matter of objectivity, I have no intention of running as a position of directly elected mayor, so I can talk with some element of objectivity. To deal with the element of that we're concerned makes no difference to me if we have a CEO or if we have a directly elected mayor, because broadly it's going to be the same in any event. It's a matter of slightly moving the chairs in the Titanic. The mayor, directly elected mayor, will get a little bit more, will get some power, not immense power as described, which I deal with now, and then the CEO will still be there. So we're adding another level of bureaucracy. We're adding a new directly elected mayor, 2 special advisors, a driver and a mayoral car, all coming in around €1 million a year or thereabouts. We'll deal with that maybe during the course of this debate, where the money's going to come from. But in terms of power, it's not the scenario that there'll no longer be a CEO. The CEO will still remain there to deal with human resources issue and other matters from at least this briefing document that basically the government doesn't trust the directly elected mayor to deal with. Namely, obviously, selective planning applications and to a degree the budget. But the mayor in Limerick City, the directly elected mayor, will have no power over policing, for example. He'll sit as a kind of ex officio member of the Joint Policing Committee. But one of the most important aspects of the city is obviously crime prevention, because there's been an increase in crime, at least in the last JPC meeting I was at, in sectors in Limerick City, while there's been a decrease in the county. Now, the powers, insofar as what we know they are from this briefing document, not set out in the heads of any bill. So the people of Limerick, all 170,000 people out there who are asked by Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil to vote yes to this proposal, we don't know what we're voting for. We have an idea that it's going to be great, it's brilliant, it's a great idea, we all love Limerick and we all do it. Yeah, we all love Limerick, but let's deal in logic, rationality and reason. We don't know what we're voting for, first of all. We have some kind of an
Some
idea.
of us do. So, I mean, maybe you say you don't, but I mean,
I
the
do
rest
actually,
of us
John.
have actually had conversations. And
I do, John. That's the point. That's why we're here. That's why we're debating, John. So with respect, I do know what I'm talking about. The people of Limerick, John, who will make the decision, who you seem to think you speak on behalf of, they don't know, because it has never been raised in the door to me. There is immense confusion over this issue.
But
like in principle, John, with respect, can I just come back to the issue of what power and what role the
But you've raised a lot of
CEO
points, and
has.
you're actually mentioning so many points I can't actually respond on any of them. So it might be helpful if I could take them one by one and
but I'm dealing
at
with
least
your
have a
points.
debate.
So just in terms of what you say is immense power, that's not really the case. And about another level of democracy. I'll just deal with the budget alone in terms of presenting a budget to the council. So the new directly elected mayor will present a budget to the council if, for example, there isn't a majority. A budget will, under this proposal, which is only a proposal, can be passed by 1/3 of the council. Now, this is the first time in politics that a minority will be in the majority. Because if 2/3...
Because the person proposing it already has a majority. That's the difference. When you compare these positions from before and after, the most important thing that matters is that the person exercising very significant powers that the CEO currently has exercises them with a democratic mandate from the people. If one person wants to prefer all the county and one person wants to prefer the city, by the time we have an election for a mayor, we will have to have found a unified position. That means that the person who sets out their vision, their policy priorities, will have found a way to convince the people of Limerick collectively that that's the best person to lead the county for the next 5 years. The difference at the moment is that the CEO does not need to engage in that dialogue. The CEO does not need to have that discussion. What we know, and I'm not saying this about any one individual or otherwise, it's incredibly hard for a CEO to actually engage with people. And sometimes there are some different organisations that have more access to the CEO or not, because there isn't an open debate about all these priorities. That's what democracy is about. It's not about one businessman being able to have his influence in the situation, or indeed anyone else. I myself know that when I was at the Department of Finance, we had lots of conversations about the future direction of the city. We may have thought we were good or bad. The point is, I want to move to a situation where people, whether they're in Rathkeale or in Newcastle West or in Janesborough or in Munleen, all feel part of the determination of that vision and going forward. They should decide in electing a mayor, I want more money spent on housing, I want more money spent on roads, I want more money spent in playgrounds out in Newcastle West. That's not part of the process at the moment. As you know, what happens is that individual councillors potentially represent just those areas. They get together. There is no single democratic way in terms of directly with the people to coalesce around one vision. And you keep trying to pretend that this is a proposal that is proposed by Fine Gael and seconded by Fianna Fáil. The Green Party were one of the first parties to come out in favour of this proposal. Brenda McGowan and Brian Ledden were among the first councillors I saw to bravely come out and say they were in favour. You have Jan O'Sullivan of the Labour Party proposing this. You have the Social Democrats. You have all party agreement on this. Now, what I find disappointing, and you're right, there hasn't been a proper debate about this. Debate has started here mainly because some of us, incredibly concerned about the broad silence of our councillors who are our leaders in this debate, haven't explained what we're asking the population to do. This is, I think, one of the most fundamental changes to local government since the beginning of the state that you described. Apart from what actually has happened, which you didn't mention at the beginning, which is progressively since the beginning of the state, power has been sucked out of Limerick and given to Dublin. We used to have the power to determine health. We used to have the power to determine a whole load of other things in the area of Limerick. It has been taken back. It has been taken back into central government in many cases because the councillors themselves didn't want to exercise these powers, right? But let me finish, please. Let me finish.
I want to deal with those issues.
You can come back to what is really important is that the progression of retaking control, the progression of allowing Limerick to step forward and be able to compete along with Cork and with Waterford requires a system that allows us to coalesce around a single vision and around a single leader. And that is what this is about. This is about the ability of a mayor with 50 or 60,000 people who voted for that person's vision to knock on the door of the Department of Health, to knock on the door of the Department of Transport, or indeed even, as you correctly pointed out, in the Department of Justice, and say, this is what the people of Limerick want. I have a mandate to speak for them. Con Murray, as CEO, does not have the same mandate at any stage. He works in the Department of Housing effectively. He reports to a SecGen, who reports to a minister, who effectively reports to a Taoiseach. Con, as good and all as he is, has limitations on his ability to represent the whole population of Limerick. The councillors, as structured, have huge limitations in their ability to do that. And I think James Collins' frustration, which is now obvious, in that no matter how hard he tried, he was hamstrung by a one-year term and the lack of a full democratic mandate. And that's what's different about this.
Well, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Social Democrats, Labour, the Green Party. Sounds like me that there is an element of groupthink about this. That doesn't mean that everybody's right just because everybody says that it'd be great to have a directly elected mayor. We all agree on it. There is deathly silence from our TDs on this issue. Why are
That's
they
not true.
Why are they,
Niall Collins has come out and said he was in favour of it.
Sorry.
No, but let's say facts,
deep
right?
With deep respect. You said that it's our duty as councillors to try and convince the people of Limerick that a directly elected mayor is there. It's my duty to actually speak my mind without fear or favour. I don't think.
Give wrong facts.
Sorry, there's no facts being given. Where is the debate? Where's the hustings? Where's Niall Collins knocking on doors saying it'd be great to have a directly elected mayor? Where's Patrick Donovan? Where's Tom Neville doing this? They might send out a tweet and you might retweet it every so often, but that's not public engagement. I'm at the doors every night. I'm not raising it as an issue because it's, being frank, it's not an issue that anybody has raised.
Because you prefer the status quo.
No,
that's
it's not
the bottom line.
quo. You see,
it protects the councillors.
The point is, no, it doesn't protect the councillors. In actual fact, the only people, if I was a TD, I'd be worried because there is no function and no reason to be a TD whatsoever after this. That's a simple matter. We're still going to be there as councillors.
If you
I'll
understood,
tell you why.
if you understood the honour of being Minister of Government, you would not have made that statement.
Listen, there is no function and there's no need to have TDs if a directly elected mayor comes through, because the directly elected mayor will have control over a budget of €500 million. It'll have control over all this vision that you say is going to be there, and it's going to be the driving force, Maria, over all these issues of planning, of housing, and of the budget. Now, can anybody actually tell me who's proposing this position of directly elected mayor what he will actually or she will actually do? Because I don't know what the powers, functions, and duties of it are. There's some reference to it here in a briefing document, but there's nothing set out in the heads of bill. Nothing. So I don't know exactly what we're talking in aspirational terms here. We're talking somewhat a little bit vague, and I mean that with no disrespect. I know that your idea is that this person, whoever he or she is, going to be directly elected mayor. I have concerns that it'll be either a celebrity socialist or just a celebrity that will be just foisted in by the political parties. Everybody would think it'd be a great idea. Let's vote in this person with no political experience, no managerial experience. And I just have a major concern. And to suggest that I'm not like an agent of change is a wrong characterization of me and the other councillors. I mean, we're on the doors every day canvassing. We're dealing with issues, housing issues, planning issues, roads issues, every single day. The system that is there has functioned extremely well. To suggest that there has been a suck back to the state, well, that's been the case since the Normans invaded this country. There's always been a centre point in Dublin as the power base. And the only people that have to blame for that are the successive ministers and the successive TDs who allowed the power to be taken away from Limerick, from Cork, from Waterford, from Galway, back towards Dublin.
And now
we share a vision, to be fair, John, you and I, that we need to have a regional balance between Dublin and a counterweight of Galway, Cork and Limerick. And that's one of the programmes that I ran on unsuccessfully when I ran for the general election in 2016. But we need to have an economic counterweight. I don't think it's best served by electing a person who can just go off on a skite of his own without reference to directly elected councillors who hold a very good CEO and have been doing that for 99 years to account on a weekly or a monthly basis, John. To suggest that the CEO has no right of recall or no right of response is wrong, because we have monthly and bi-monthly meetings where the chief executive gives a report on the previous 2 months. We hold the chief executive to account.
Over and over again, I have met councillors in this county who have expressed their frustration at their inability to get their views of what they think should be happening
mustn't be very good, John.
Done by the council. Okay, we have it on O'Connell Street at the moment. It's a process that's gone on now for 2 or 3 years. Okay, the councillors asked for something that would be transformative, that would change the very nature of our city, become a destination. Last week I saw the new proposals after 2 or 3 consultation processes, and if anything, and I don't know if they've been shown to the councillor or not yet, maybe they haven't. I don't know if you have seen them, and if you have, then maybe you'll tell me whether you think that they're transformative or not. Right? If you haven't seen them, then isn't it a bit bizarre that actually the democratic guardians of what's going to happen with our main street, having seen them before we're talking to other people around town. Right? There is a fundamental failure with the way our system works to actually mean that the will of the people
just on
actually
that point,
comes forward.
can you tell me what was wrong with that system? What was wrong with the CEO proposing something, with a Part 8 planning application coming through, with consultants drafting a plan for this mass pedestrianisation of O'Connell Street and beyond, and then having a public consultation where the people of Limerick, Newcastle West, Abbeyfield, Drumkeen can come in and say, don't like that, maybe you should do this.
I think
what
that's
is
a
wrong?
great system.
Exactly, there's nothing wrong with the system.
Except
Now, we have to put in a czar, a mayoral czar, in to tell us how to live our lives and how to do.
Except where, in very big decisions like we're talking about, we have to find a way in which we can unify around a single vision. Okay? I don't
Sorry,
think.
what does that
excuse
actually
me,
mean?
I'll explain.
What does a single? You've used that phrase about 20 times.
Can I try and explain?
No, but it would be.
If you will ask me a question, I have to be able to answer it,
yeah,
right?
But
if you have a situation.
What is a single vision?
Where
is it set out in the proposal here? Is it set out in the statute? It's not. What is a single vision?
No, a single vision is. I have heard lots of people in the county worried that if we had an overly pro-city CEO or an overly pro sort of council, okay, that the county would be forgotten about. In fact, actually, many of the people that represent the county have complained about that very fact, right? Now, when you have to do a democratic election where transferable votes will work through so that the only person who will prevail represents more than 50% of the people who are voting, roughly split between people in the city and the county. You cannot have a vision for Limerick that does not include the desires and the aspirations of the county and the desires and the aspiration of the city.
Okay.
And that is how you
in your
unify
single
it.
vision, whatever that is, it's not set out in the proposal, it's not set out in the statute. Tell me what is going to be the defined role, executive and reserved, of the new the new directly elected mayor relative to the CEO, because it's not set out anywhere here. What, are we still going to have a CEO?
A number of powers of the existing CEO,
Like what?
which are very important.
Like what?
Setting the strategy,
What
deciding what should happen.
What strategy?
Well,
there's a number of strategies, John.
I assume. Okay,
Local area plans?
Hold on a second. I assume that the CEO, when there's new council elected, as there will be very shortly, will help to explain what the CEO and his officials think should be done in the next 5 years in the county. They will have
it's a program for the council, in other words. That's what you're saying.
A program for the council.
Okay, so tell me, what are the other strategies then?
No, but
local area
we will
plans?
have a local area plan.
Will they present a
coming
local
down,
area plan?
Right?
Okay.
We
a
will,
strategic plan. Will they present that?
Yeah, there's a program. Well, in the new scenario, there will be effectively a program for local government which will set out what that mayor wants to achieve in the 5 years.
How about policing? What are the...
We know, you and I know...
What the new direct elected mayor do with policing?
You and I know
Seriously, John.
that the powers of the new mayor relative to the powers of the CEO will not necessarily involve any more powers for policing. I suspect we both... I suspect we both agree that it would be a good idea to give them both. So that if you have to keep with the CEO, give them more powers in policing. If you have to do with the mayor, give them more powers in policing. But I would worry about giving somebody who hasn't necessarily been elected more powers about policing and other things, more powers about transport decisions. Because transport decisions, by their very nature, require a compromise between people who use public transport, people who use cars, and others. And in
So that comes
presenting...
back. That comes back. Sorry.
We might just take a little break. We're just going to take a little break for a few
We're
minutes.
just in a really good spot here. This is really good. Do we have to take a break?
We'll go for one more point, so, and then we're going to take a little break here because I'm going to open some questions.
You referenced the whole concept of compromise and consultation. I think the public consultation process through Part 8 of the Planning and Development Act is a really good process. It invites people in. You need to have compromise between the various stakeholders, business interests, transport interests, as you said, people who are victims of crime, the policing as well. That is happening as it stands. But if you have a directly elected mayor, a person who's directed by universal suffrage of the people of Limerick, who's to say that they just won't go off on a scat of their own? They will have no power whatsoever.
Because they still have the same element of control by the council as the council currently has of the CEO.
Well, then
but
why
as
do you need one?
I'll explain the difference. Right? As a practical matter, incredibly complex proposals. We go to Part 8 planning. Incredibly complex proposals, let's say associated with the Opera Centre, or indeed even the O'Connell Street one I mentioned, will come to the councillors. They have a large amount of work to be done in a number of hours. I think it's 2 or 3 hours you guys sit, maybe it's longer, okay? You have a lot of stuff to do, and you have only got that period of time to deal with an agenda item called O'Connell Street. Okay, it's not really appropriate for the CEO to probably negotiate individually with 40-something councillors what they want or don't want in that. It comes to that forum, and you get the right to reject it, to accept it, or to make amendments.
It fundamentally doesn't work like that, John. You actually know, with the deepest of respect, you actually do not know what you're talking about there. It doesn't work like that, first of all, okay? Because, no, it doesn't work like that.
I think we'll have to disagree, because you're not the only councillor I talk to.
Because
I have heard frustration from councillors that those meetings do not work for them to get their view across.
I generally find the councillors are frustrated.
And that's why a lot of them want to change.
Okay.
That's why a lot of them want to change the system. Not all of the councillors are opposed to it.
Unanimously by the council, the councillors rejected the proposal of directly elected mayor. It's that simple. The system isn't broke. It doesn't need to be fixed.
Perhaps they're protecting the status quo. Perhaps they're upset about the fact that they won't now maybe be mayor. Perhaps they're upset that they won't get this 1 year.
And I'll be very objective about this. I have no interest in the bells and the whistles.
I realise you don't.
Yeah, or the medals. So I can speak objectively. Or the chains. No interest whatsoever. But I believe in the separation of powers. As Acton once said, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Which
there
is
has
why
to be a
you need
separate
democratic control.
Quite the opposite, actually. You have a system whereby you have a CEO. The CEO is held to account on a monthly and a bi-monthly basis by the councillors, and the councillors are directly elected by the people of Adair Cllr, Kilmallock-Capamore, Newcastle West and beyond. The system is not broke. Don't fix it. And if you want to fix it, actually give us concrete proposals of what you're actually proposing. Because this document, frankly, is not a bill. It is nothing to my mind. There is no concrete proposals in that, only suppositions. This may happen, that may happen, maybe a little power here, a little bit of power there. The CEO will still stay on, and of course there'll be huge wages.
Okay, we might take a little break now. What we're going to do is we're going to come back to some social media questions and open to the floor as well. So we'll take a little water break. Thanks very much.